Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Now we've seen a lot of dresses and tops lately here on my channel, so I thought it's about time to do some pants again, because pants is always this like feared topic that everybody says I can't do pants myself, which is wrong. I mean, yes, it is an advanced project, of course, but you can do it too, because I'm going to show you step by step on how to do it. This episode we're going to make elegant straight leg jeans. And I'm saying jeans very, used very lightly, because jeans per se is not really what I am doing, because I'm not using denim fabric, I'm not using, any typical jean fabric, but I am using corduroy. And my cat demands to get inside my studio. So, I'm not using denim fabric per se, but I'm using corduroy. And I'm also parallel to that, making it in this blue, very flowy twill fabric, which has a little bit of elasticity, which the corduroy also has. And I recommend you choose a fabric with 1 to 2% elastin, as it's just gonna be a better fit. So this garment is not made for a 100% denim fabric. Choose a fabric with elasticity. So I want to see how this fabric behaves in a jean cut, and also like with the straight leg, and in comparison to the rather stiff corduroy that I chose, which also has elastin. And we're gonna compare at the very end, hopefully tomorrow when I shoot everything. I have both pairs done. Yes, I only have 1 day of making that. Wish me luck. So let's get started with the video. So the first thing that we have to do, I already prepared like the first few pattern pieces that we have to work with, is to overlock around a few edges. I have my pockets right here, and these are my fly pieces for the opening in the front. So I want to overlock around the round edges of the pocket pieces and around the whole back pocket right here. And then the fly pieces just get overlocked all around. We're going to iron this in half before we overlock. For all the pieces, the waistline, so everything that points upwards here, does not have to get overlocked, as it's going to get sewn into the waistband, which hides the seam allowance, so no need there. Also, keep the side seam open. We're gonna overlock that at the very end together with the pants. And here, this part, like the pocket opening, does not need to get overlocked, as we're going to hide that with the pocket itself. Let's do this piece right in the beginning. This is the fly, where you just have to iron it in half. There is the fold line on the pattern piece, and then we can also overlock this piece right here. So let's overlock. Okay, everything is prepared now, and I took the pocket and pocket facings, so the upper and the lower pocket and pocket facings, because we're going to put the pocket facing on top of the pocket itself. And usually that's on me here. Usually you would use like a cotton fabric for the pocket itself, and then just the fashion fabric for the facing. I did not do that because I don't actually know why, but I'm still gonna show you how to work with this. So just imagine this being a cotton fabric. So you just put like the facing right on top of the pocket. All of the notches here in the side seam should align, and then you're just going to stitch right into the overlock seam here of the pocket facing. And you can also just stitch into the seam allowance all around the piece itself. We're going to do exactly the same for the upper pocket, like this. Okay, so now we're gonna put the lower pocket aside for a second and grab our pants, like our front pant pieces, and our upper pockets. And we're gonna put the upper pockets right sides onto the front pant legs. They should just fit on there exactly like this. And we're going to stitch right here. So we're going to shut the pocket opening. Once we turn it right sides out, it's gonna have like a nice finish for our pocket opening. To be able to turn this stark curve right sides out, we're going to cut towards the stitching line here. And I'm gonna add top stitches throughout this whole project because it fits the fabric very well. So what I will be doing is a set of 2 double seams, like 2 double rows of top stitches. So whenever I mention that I will top stitch, I will do this double row so that everything fits together nicely. And if not, I'm gonna tell you what else I am doing for the stitching line. But basically that is what it should end up looking like. Make sure to iron the ditch of the seam towards the pocket side. As for the right side, it's going to look like this. So very nice, very clean. And as I said, I'm going to do top stitches here very closely to the upper corner, and then just 5 millimeters apart from that. That's what I will be doing throughout this whole project. Okay, and now with the pocket opening done, we can put the lower pocket right underneath that. You should find another set of notches that mark the opening of the pocket. And apart from that, it should just fit right on top. So I'm just going to fix this in place with 2 needles like this. And now once I turn this around, you should find that the pocket almost perfectly just sits right on top here. And that's what we're going to do next. Now we're not going to perfectly match up these 2 pockets. We're going to leave it as is because otherwise it's just going to get wobbly and weird on the inside, and we don't want that. So what I will be doing is from the wrong side of the pants, pin the 2 pocket layers together. And now we can stitch the pocket together here. So just from this side right here all the way up into the waistband, and just the 2 layers of pockets. Okay, that is what the pocket looks like. And now we can go ahead and overlock the seam allowance here on the side. So the side seam all the way down to the hem. We can overlock the center front and also the inner leg seam here on the inside to prepare for the fly opening that we're gonna do next. I like to put my front pant legs on the table like this so that I know exactly where which part goes basically. On here we're gonna put the round fly piece. On here we're gonna put the rectangular one like this. You're gonna find the fly notch here in the center front, and until that point is where all our stitching lines go, so no further than that, except obviously once we close the remaining center front. So what we need now is a zipper, preferably one in a matching color and usually with metal teeth. I don't have one, so that is the best that I can offer. You only need one that is this long, about 22 centimeters, so nothing longer than that. Everything else will be cut off anyways. So to start off, we're going to open our zipper, put right sides onto our left, in this case, center front. I like to align my metal stopper up here just with the raw edge of my center front, because this will be sewn into the waistband. And if it's like tucked away up there, I don't have any issues with like maybe stitching on top of the metal piece right there, which would be bad because that means needle breakage. So I like to just tuck it away, and then if anything I can still cut it away as well, just as a small tip. And now without stretching any layer, so neither the zipper nor the center front, I can pin the zipper band in place and stitch until the zipper notch down here. So I just like to go with my normal zipper foot, like right at the edge here, because of the zipper teeth. It just, you know, lets me only sew towards the edge. And then afterwards we're going to put the fly right on top here and stitch at 1 centimeter or whatever your seam allowance is, right until the zipper notch down here on top of all the layers. We can now fold this like this, and you can already see the zipper here, how it's going to end up laying. And right at the zipper notch into the seam allowance, we're going to cut towards the stitching line. So I'm going to find my zipper notch and then cut towards the stitching line. This will open up the seam allowance for later purposes of closing the center front, and it's not gonna make any issues while understitching and then also ironing, which we're going to do now. So this is what it should end up looking like with the notch cut towards, and therefore we can pop out that seam allowance here. So let's close the zipper and just iron. I'm just going to very closely top stitch right until the zipper notch. Okay, that's what it looks like. Let's give it another iron. And now we're going to continue with the other side. So it's pretty straightforward here. We're going to put our right sides together and stitch from waistline all the way down to the zipper notch. Just as with the other side, we're also here going to cut towards the stitching line right at the zipper notch. And I'm only cutting into the seam allowance of my front piece. Let's iron the fly piece towards the wrong side of the fabric. And I also here make sure that the ditch of the seam is only visible on the wrong side. We can pop out the seam allowance here. And now it's already time to put both sides together. So what I like to do is to match up the zipper notches with the stitching lines. And there is the top stitching of this side here to cover. So I am going to cover generously-ish, going to go over that like 1 to 2 millimeters to the side and then all the way up. Also not perfectly onto the zipper, but a tiny bit more towards the left, so that whatever tucking we might experience here, the zipper won't show. It's basically laying kind of vertical here. And this I want to fix in place with a few needles, and I'm only going to fix it in place like very much towards the fold line here. Because however we fix it in place now is going to be how the pants will look in the very end, so do this carefully. Now we want to peel open the front and only grab the round fly piece here and the zipper band. So we want to fold the rectangular fly piece out of the way. I'm going to flip my pants now to be able to pin. So the rectangular piece here is flipped out of the way, and now I'm going to pin the zipper band onto the round fly piece. Now I can sew the zipper band onto the round fly piece, making sure that everything lays exactly how I want it to lay. We can now already cut away the excess of the zipper if you have any. And with some bar tacks that we're going to put from the outside, it's going to be secure as well, so the zipper is not going to be like... So let's continue with the lower center front seam. So because we cut towards the stitching line here, we have a seam allowance that just moves freely. Now what I still want to do is to catch that point where the stitching line continues on. So like right here, it goes into the zipper seam, and the same on the other side. I want to go into that seam, probably maybe a tiny bit further towards the piece, so maybe like 1 millimeter set into the piece, and then on the other side as well, everything gets secured with bar tacks in the very end. So let's close this short piece here. So this is what it looks like. Here is where the seam starts. As I said, we're going to add bar tacks and the top stitching here, so nothing will be visible anyways. Now it's time to iron the seam allowance towards one side, and we're going to do the same side as the fly piece also faces towards. And now it's time to add the top stitching here. So for that, we need our fly stitch pattern piece, and we're just going to flip it around, put the end right where the notch is, use any water-soluble marker and draw in that shape. And that's the shape that we're going to top stitch. Now for top stitching, we have to take the rectangular piece and fold it out of the way again, because if you stitch that there, you're gonna close your pants forever. Now, you're just not gonna be able to open the zipper as it's just, everything is just closed. So what I will be doing is to just flip it to the side and with a few needles hold it at that side as well. And now I'm going to stitch to like somewhere down here. I will see how far I can go, preferably to about 5 millimeters before the center front seam, and then put my needle up, flip this back, and then like pull on my upper thread to have it tight, and then continue stitching here and do a bar tack. That way you don't have to stop sewing, start sewing, and have it maybe look a bit wonky, but you just continue on your line and everything is how it's supposed to be. So with the rectangular fly piece out of the way, stitch from up here all the way down to about 5 millimeters before the center front seam starts. Then put your needle up, flip this back, and stitch a bar tack here with having, you know, making sure that your top thread is pulled tightly. Okay, that is what it looks like. I am just going to iron this also to get rid of my markings. And with that, the fly and the full front piece is already done. So for the back, I'm going to prepare the back pockets. That means basically just ironing the pocket opening seam allowance towards the wrong side. Now I want to top stitch this, and I'm gonna do a double stitch again. And now I'm just going to iron all of the other remaining sides, like just my seam allowance towards the inside. And these prepared like this can just be top stitched right on top the back pant legs. So you're gonna find the placement for your back pockets on your pattern piece. Just copy that onto your fabric and top stitch your pockets onto your back pants. Okay, with the back pockets in place, we can put the yoke onto our back piece. And we're gonna do that separately first. So we're gonna put the yoke on our back pants each, overlock and double top stitch. And then we're gonna put the center back together, because this way you just have a neater match here. Like that corner here needs to be that perfect corner, if you will. So let's do this. Now to put the center back together, we want to match up the yoke seam as best as possible. So what I like to do for that is just use a pin and mark exactly the ditch of the yoke seam right here and match that up with the one of the other side. And that way you should have them right on top of each other. And now the rest obviously also gets matched up. So we're going to sew and overlock this. And after that we can overlock the side seam and the inner leg seam of the back pieces to prepare for putting everything together in the very end. So I went ahead and also double top stitched the center back right here. I just ironed the seam allowance to one side and then just did a double top stitch all across the center back. Now the center piece is already finished as well, so we can go ahead and put our right sides of front and back pieces together and completely sew them together as well. So we're going to match up all of the notches in our legs. Up here you're going to find a yoke notch, a pocket notch, and so on and so forth. Just match all of them up and then sew the outer leg seam. I like to top stitch my outer leg seam, so that's what I will be doing before continuing on. So basically close the first one, then top stitch the leg seam with the seam allowances facing towards the back leg, and then doing the other side seam, top stitching the seam allowance towards the back, and only then doing the inner leg seam. Because if you do the inner leg seam, you can't really reach the seam allowance anymore. That's why you do that before. Or if you just say, I don't want to top stitch anything anyways, that's fine too. You can just close all of the seams. So let's continue with the belt loops right here. So this is a strip that is 3 centimeters wide and about 50 centimeters long. I will cut 5 pieces that measure 8 centimeters from this, so that's why I have minimum 40 centimeters and then just a tiny bit more. I'm now going to iron both of the overlocked edges towards the inside, which I then top stitch, and then I can cut everything to size. The placements for the belt loops are marked in the pattern, so I'm just going to put right sides onto the pant itself and pin it in place like this. You can bar tack these in place if you want to, or just leave the needles as they are right now, because we're going to continue with the waistband now and it's gonna get sewn all together then anyways. So let's put this aside and grab our two waistband patterns. It's important now that you get the correct one. So both of these have on one end 4 centimeters attached to them. It's marked with a notch. This is going to be the piece that lays on here. So because we have the fly, it needs a tiny bit more waistband basically. So we know that this piece, which fits here, is going to be the one that sits on the outside, and this is going to be the one that sits on the inside, because the 4 centimeters here will be like this. So we're going to take the one that sits on the outside and iron the seam allowance into the waistband. And now we can put right sides of both of the waistband pieces together. I like to have the seam allowance already folded over like this and start sewing with the seam allowance already flipped over, like I'm gonna sew right over here. I only start sewing at the edge of the fold there. I don't need any stitches here. I'm going to cut away the corners so that I can turn the right sides out better, which I'm going to do now. And I'm going to use this tool for like popping my edges out and iron the ditch of the seam towards the facing of the waistband, so the non-ironed side basically. And also, since your waistband is not a straight piece, it is a curve, you probably want to cut towards the stitching line every 2 centimeters or something like that in order for it to lay flatter and nicer, so it's just taking away all of the stretch, the pressure off of it. And now with that we can go ahead and iron the waistband flat and nice in order to put it onto our pants. To put our waistband onto our pants, we want to put the non-iron side right sides together with the wrong side, like the inside of our pants. And I'm just going to pin everything in place, match it up with all of the notches that are in the waistband. So like match up the side seam, match up the center back, and so on and so forth. And now I can put the waistband on. So now, once I take all of these needles out, we can flip the waistband and fold it towards the outside, like the right side of the pants. And since we already ironed the seam allowance for the waistband on the outside towards the inside, there's not much that we have to do. We just have to cover the stitching lines of our waist seam that we just did. And now we still have the notches that we need to match up with the corresponding seams. So I like to do that first and then do the in-between part basically. And we're not going to do anything for the belt loops yet. We're just going to stitch over it here. These will be folded up like this at the very end and bar tacked in place. I'm going to start sewing at the center back, because then we're not going to have a bar tack in the front, and go around the waistband until I reach the center back again. And I'm going to do that very closely to the edge. I think that's the best solution. And after that, we're going to fold up the belt loops like this, with the upper edge folded in like this, and then we're just going to add a bar tack up here, and it's going to get like ironed flat. So I turned everything quickly wrong sides out for the hem, which I will do with hem tape. So I'm just going to iron about 2 to 3 centimeters up, probably 2 is better, just like that. Iron this in place, And then I'm gonna use a wider hem tape like this, which is I think 1.5 centimeters wide, which I will then use to fix the hem in place here. And I'll repeat the same for the other side, of course. Okay, let's sew a buttonhole. I marked the spot right here. I just measured 1 centimeter towards the right, and it's just the center of the waistband. And I'm gonna do a machine stitch buttonhole right here with the corresponding button laying on the underside here, right at the crisscross section here, so the left part of the buttonhole, right where the opening starts. And that's it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed and I hope you learned something and that pants are actually not too difficult. So I hope I took away the fear of pants yet again, as I did a few tutorials on pants on my channel already. So if you didn't like this particular style of pants, you can go ahead and check the playlist that I made up here. Maybe there's a model in there that you like better and that you'd like to try out. The link to the pattern is in the description down below. That is also the most direct way to support me and keep videos just like this one coming. Of course, it would also help me out tremendously if you just hit subscribe and ring the bell so you'll get notified every time that I post. I post on Sunday, so you can keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, if you haven't already, go ahead and check out my social media. I post loads of reels all around my projects, so if you are bored or just want to, you know, get some quick knowledge on the go, go ahead and give me a follow there. Also, you can become a channel member and get exclusive benefits. Link is also down in the description below, so thank you so much for watching and your support, and I'm gonna see you next Sunday. Bye guys!